Let's talk about Los Angeles. Let's talk about America, what's been going on over there. Of course, I don't know what the situation is today. It won't be night yet in LA, but most nights, you know, LA has burned. There have been riots going on since last Friday. This was after ICE, the immigration unit, moved in to areas of downtown LA, the city bit, to raid various businesses with a view to catching people who are illegal migrants and shouldn't be working and then deporting them. This, of course, has ignited these protests. Protests that are spreading, it seems, possibly to New York, possibly to San Francisco, Atlanta. Now, Donald Trump has responded to the unrest in Los Angeles by sending in the National Guard, 4,000 of them. Just to put that in context, that's like the reserves here, the Territorial Army. They're not professional soldiers, so they've been called in. And he's now talking about sending in 700 Marines as well. Now, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and the Democrat mayor, Karen Bass, they say we never needed these troops. We had this under control, and that President Trump has sent in the soldiers, if you like, in order to deliberately inflame the situation, make this Democrat city look bad, and to threaten other cities with the same kind of action, which he has. He said, I may do this to other cities as well. Well, look, we're going to have a debate. I'm going to introduce the guests in just a minute, but just to set the scene, here is the governor of California talking about what he calls Donald Trump's assault on democracy, and getting quite teary-eyed about it. So take it away, Gavin.
California is no stranger to immigration enforcement, but instead of focusing on undocumented immigrants with serious criminal records and people with final deportation orders, a strategy both parties have long supported, this administration is pushing mass deportations, indiscriminately targeting hardworking immigrant families, regardless of their roots or risk. What's happening right now is very different than anything we've seen before. On Saturday morning, when federal agents jumped out of an unmarked van near a Home Depot parking lot, they began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested, a 4-year-old girl taken, families separated, friends quite literally disappearing.
He also went on to talk about what he said was a kind of coordinated assault on democracy by the president, that Donald Trump was attacking Democrat cities with a view to a kind of tyranny from Washington. Now here's Donald Trump responding to all of this. This is what he has said about the protests arising from these ICE raids.
The agitators are throwing firebombs, Molotov cocktails, lighting vehicles ablaze. You saw all the cars that were burning, mobbing police officers and ICE officers who are the toughest people you'll ever meet, and they love our country, and they're getting really they want to stomp on them, but they're too tough. They don't allow it. And attempting to infiltrate and occupy federal buildings wearing armor and face shields. The best money can buy, somebody's financing it. We're going to find out through Pam Bondi and Department of Justice who it is. They're already on it. Who's financing all this equipment? Very professional. Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy. And that's what they are.
So there's Donald Trump. He says he's not assaulting democracy. He's trying to keep these cities safe, and he's trying to come good on his electoral pledge to deport illegal migrants by sending in the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, known as ICE. To debate this issue, this burning issue, if I can put it that way, in the studio, Greg Swenson from the Republicans Overseas Organisation here in London, and from the Democrats abroad, John Scardino. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome, Greg.
Yeah. Good to see you, John.
So, John, first, can I come to you first? What do you say to Gavin Newsom's accusation that Donald Trump is launching an assault on democracy? And what do you think about Donald Trump's response, essentially, that he was democratically elected to deport illegal migrants, and that's what he's trying to do in Los Angeles?
Look, I think Trump was looking for an excuse to send in troops like this and to show an unnecessary show of force. I think it's a demonstration of incompetence in leadership. He did have a conversation with Governor Newsom about the situation in LA. They talked a bit about a number of things going on in California, but in no point in that conversation did he talk about sending in the National Guard, which is quite an extension to, at the least, of his power as president, because it technically, as you know, and I think as you've covered before, that the National Guard is under the authority of the governor and of governors in other states. It's not a force that is typically used by the president. But after this phone call, without mentioning sending in the National Guard, Trump went ahead and did it in a way that was an uncoordinated, not well thought out, and after the fact, Governor Newsom asked him to rescind the order, that it would just be putting fuel on the fire of what was going on down there, that the local law enforcement and additional support from the rest of the state of California was more than adequate to handle the situation. As you know, California is the biggest state in the union, and they have, if it were a separate country, it would be something like the fifth largest economy in the world. So they've definitely got the resources to manage situations like this, and they were relying not only on local law enforcement, but it had sent in 175 specially trained California Highway Patrol troops to come in and reinforce local law enforcement.
Do you think, John, then, that President Trump, Donald Trump, sent in the National Guards? He's also threatening to send in Marines. Do you think he deliberately did that to inflame the situation, make it look bad, and make a Democrat city look bad?
Oh, absolutely. This is all political theater as far as Donald Trump is concerned. And the troops that he's sending in, the Marines, for example, which is now taking this another step further to make it more dramatic and put more fuel on the fire. Those troops are, they're Marines. They're not trained in this kind of situation. In fact, I was watching a video just this afternoon showing from a drone's point of view the Marines taking training on the spot just this afternoon. So they're sending in troops that aren't equipped, aren't trained, don't have the mentality for this kind of local law enforcement activity, and I think it's going to lead to a bad situation, I'm afraid to say. But it's an enormous overstep of presidential authority. And it's something that he was just itching for a fight like this with a Democratic governor.
Okay,
so no
okay, John. Well, let's bring in Greg Swenson. By the way, pop fact: last time they sent the National Guard into Los Angeles amid riots, I was there.
That's
I was
right.
covering it. It was the Rodney King riots in 1992. So there's something quite nostalgic about all this for me. But seriously, Greg, your view on what's going on. So supporters of Trump would argue that what he's trying to do is to come good on his electoral pledge to deport illegal migrants. Now, I know more than most that many people, Los Angeles is illegal migrant city. In fact, if they get rid of all the illegal migrants from Los Angeles, everybody's backyards will go to hell.
Who's going to cut Gavin Newsom's lawn?
Exactly right. But seriously, your view on what's going on. I mean, John says that the president is doing this deliberately to inflame the situation and make a Democrat city and a Democrat state look bad. Where do you stand on this?
Well, just about everybody on the left and the Democratic media complex is arguing that, and it's absurd because what as you said, President Trump is delivering on his campaign promises. And let's remember, I mean, Gavin Newsom talked about democracy, Teary, Gavin Newsom. Look, Congress makes the laws. That's in democracy. They legislate the laws, and then the executive branch enforces the law. Obama did it quite well. I've seen a lot of his former Justice Department official, Cecilia Munoz, talking a lot about it, old clips from 2011 and 12 saying, we are going to enforce the law. If you don't like the law, go to Congress and have it changed. So this is black and white. This is political malpractice by Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. That's President Trump's job, and he's doing it. So he sends in ICE, and then Mayor Bass and Gavin Newsom say to their police departments, don't cooperate with ICE, which is against the law. If you catch someone stealing, or someone has a speeding ticket, they're obligated to report illegal migrants to ICE. Now, they refuse to do that in these so-called sanctuary cities. So basically what the left is saying, what the Democrats are saying is, don't enforce the law, don't enforce immigration law, and if you do, we're going to burn your city down. That's just not sensible.
John, respond, if you will.
I think that's a bit of an over-dramatization, Greg, of the situation. I wouldn't say that they are not cooperating with the ICE agents. The ICE has a job to do, and I certainly wouldn't want to get in the way of them. They are for my own personal safety. But I think what is a concern, and you will have heard the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor both say the way that we oppose this is through peaceful demonstration, through peaceful protest. If you are here to damage property and to engage in looting, then you will be dealt with. Don't come out expecting that this is a party of some sort. You're going to be harshly dealt with if you're after damaging property or stealing goods or anything like that. So I think they've been quite clear about their intentions. The governor and the state of California have worked with the National Guard before in similar circumstances. In fact, they've worked in coordination with the National Guard on the southern border to interdict illegal supplies of fentanyl that have been coming over the border. So they've been, there is a history there of cooperation. It's just in this particular case, as I say, Trump was, itching for a fight, and in light of having a very bad week last week, the jobs numbers were not very good. The economy is not doing well. The forecast for a recession coming later in the year as a result of tariffs and this budget deal that he's trying to shove down everybody's throat. He's not having a very good time, and his poll numbers are down.
That notwithstanding, though, John, all those points taken, but that notwithstanding, Greg's point, he's got this electoral pledge. He said, I'm going to deport illegal migrants. Now, around the state, if you want to go to the place where you're going to find the most illegal migrants, it will be in Los Angeles. So surely he has every right to send ICE in. And you're playing this down. But Greg is right. Newsom and Karen Bass told the police, told the local law enforcers not to cooperate with ICE. And there's this undercurrent of Newsom and Karen Bass supporting the protesters. What exactly is it that you feel that Donald Trump is doing wrong here, insofar as he's just honouring what he said he was going to do in the election campaign?
There's a huge number of immigrants all across the country. In Georgia, where I'm from, obviously in Texas, but in Chicago, hundreds of miles.
Well, he's going to go into these cities as well. He said so, and he's talking about.
But, and Republican and Democratic states.
Well, what's wrong with that?
There are immigrants all over the place.
But there's nothing wrong with
that. There is a way of doing it and a way of dealing with crisis that I think he's inept and incompetent in doing. He has a really misguided idea of what the military and the armed forces are there to do. And I think he completely is misjudged this. He's going to do this again in just a couple of days, using the excuse of the Army's 250th anniversary to throw a great big military-style birthday party parade for himself, the first time in decades that there's ever been a military parade in Washington, D.C. Look, we Democrats are very supportive of the military services and the service that men and women have given.
Are you supportive of the policy to deport illegal migrants?
Yes, Democrats worked with Republicans before the election. There was a bill that we were working on together that was a Republican-led initiative supported by Democrats that was working its way through the Senate. And Joe Biden and others have introduced a number of immigration reforms that didn't make it anywhere because the Republicans like to campaign on this issue. And this was exactly the case at the beginning of last year, and before Trump was elected. He said, kill the Senate bill. And I know that it would go through. It was looking like it was going to go through. And before it got to a vote, he said to the Republicans in the Senate, don't bring this bill for a vote because it'll go through, and I want immigration to campaign on.
Okay, John, let's let Greg have a word now. Look, Donald Trump, I believe, has empowered himself to do what he's done in LA in every state, all 50 states. So he can now, if he chooses, if there's trouble, he can send in the National Guard and indeed the Marines to every single state. And he's talking about New York in particular. He's talking about San Francisco. He's talking about Atlanta. He's talking about Democrat cities.
Right. It won't be 50 states. It'll be a handful.
Yeah. So what about, respond to what John is saying, that he's doing this purely performatively, purely to shroud other problems that he's got. What's
I
your
agree with
answer
the performative, because President Trump is performative. He's great at it, right? That's why one of the reasons he was elected. But he's on the moral high ground here. And I think what you'll hear from Democrats a lot, I'm sorry I couldn't hear John with the audio, but one is that they'll say he started it, okay? And that's obscene and that's absurd. He's following the law, just like Obama did, like Biden did not, but Trump is not Biden, quite obviously. But Obama followed it, Bush followed it, and now you have Trump following it. The second thing they'll say is it was mostly peaceful. That's hysterical. Like in 2020 when St. John's Church was burning behind the CNN guy who said that.
They're saying that, aren't they?
If it's so peaceful, why did Mayor Bass enforce a curfew last night? You see burning
By
cars.
the way, they keep saying that, mostly peaceful demonstrations. Though that kind of statement is the enemy of journalism. You can't say mostly peaceful. That's like saying, there was a horrific train crash. 50 people died, but most of the passengers didn't.
Yeah,
it's nonsense. It's
corrupt.
Absolute nonsense.
So you got burning cars in the background. You got stores being looted, the Apple shop or whatever. And then they also like to say no president has ever federalized troops without the cooperation of the governor. Like in '92, when George H.W. sent the Army, the Marines, and the National Guard, he had the cooperation of the governor. However, look at Eisenhower in '57, look at JFK. Eisenhower sent federal troops to Arkansas because the Democratic governor of Arkansas would not desegregate the schools. The Congress of the United States said, you must desegregate. And the governor said, we're not going to follow that law because we don't like it. We don't like our black children going to school with white children. So JFK and Eisenhower both federalized Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. So there's plenty of history.
He does have the right to federalize this issue.
Absolutely he does. And he should, because first of all, he's protecting the ICE agents who are under threat. And secondly, now
and just doing their job.
Yes, and now so they were under threat. Now he's got to protect the poor people that live in that neighborhood in LA, who are the ones who suffer the most. If you burnt a car in Beverly Hills, Kevin, you know LA, you lived there 10 years. If you burnt a car in Beverly Hills, you're going to jail, right? If you loot a store in Beverly Hills, this is a governor who's decriminalized crime. That's why Walgreens and CVS are basically moving out of the state, or at least San Francisco. And last weekend, a biological male just cleaned up the gold medals at the high school track state championships. I mean, these people have lost their minds there. So this is what we're dealing with.
Listen, John, I'm going to give you the last word here because this is what the charge is. Greg is making this charge, and a lot of Republicans and right-wingers, non-Democrats say the same. And there seems to be evidence for it. That Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are a disastrous double act. They were disastrous during the LA fires, and they look to be pretty disastrous now. Now, with all due respect to Democrats, you could have better people in these positions right now, couldn't you?
Look, I
think he's going to say yes.
I was going to say that look, maybe Greg couldn't hear because of the audio or some of the things that I've said, but a number of the things that he has claimed that people on the left would be saying, I haven't said. I'm in favor of an appropriate management of the immigration issue that we've got. And my point is that I think Donald Trump is exacerbating this situation for his own political benefit. There is a way to deal with it. As I've said, the National Guard has been used effectively and in cooperation with this government, with this governor in California, to good effect. So I just think that this is completely out of control in terms of the steps that the president is taking, and the way to oppose it is through peaceful protest, which I think you're going to see across the country this Saturday. There are thousands of demonstrations that are lined up.
Peaceful protest, John. Good luck with that, to be honest with you. I said I was going to give you the last word, but on the same issue that I'm going to ask Greg exactly the same question that I asked you. Newsom and Bass. All due respect to the Democrats, they could do better, couldn't they?
Of course. They're the AOC of California. I mean, it's political malpractice. This is going to be a complete loser for them. I mean, you mentioned the wildfires. You've got stores closing because crime has been decriminalized. I mean, look, an absolute mess. And I thought Newsom was starting to pivot to the center. He did Joe Rogan. He was starting to, kind of maybe get away from these radical progressive policies, but he's been sucked right back in. And I think this is, and this is why the polling is really supportive. Deportation, mass deportation, is polling at 67 with Hispanics, and it's polling in the mid-60s with Kamala Harris voters.
It's popular here as well.
Absolutely.
Listen, John, good to talk to you. And let's hope that on Saturday, because they've called for a day of protest all over America, let's hope that those are peaceful protests and not what the press call mostly peaceful, which is the opposite of peaceful. Let's hope they're genuinely peaceful. Good to talk to you, John. Thanks for coming on. John Scardino there, Democrats Abroad. And thank you, Greg Swenson, chairman of the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London. He's in London now. It's good to have him back.